as the other candidates have, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening and thank Nancy for doing this job, because I've done it once before, and actually twice before, and it's not an easy job. My name's Claire Smith, and for the past 25 years, at one time or another, during the political season, somebody would always come up to me and say, would you consider running for public office? And my answer always was a very loud, no thank you. Until now. First of all, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and why I've changed my mind about running for public office. My father was the type of person who always stepped up to the plate, got involved with various organizations, and volunteered for town committees. In fact, the playground in Swift's Beach is named after my dad because of his contributions to the youth of Wareham. My introduction to the community of Wareham began at the age of 18 when I began going to town meeting with my dad. He introduced me to some of the prominent speakers who always stood up on town meeting floor, such participants such as Helen Palmer Lincoln, Jim Bergamasco, Les Renoir, Stephen Stone, Angus MacDonald. Those who stood up and were never shy about standing up, asking questions, and giving input. Their thoughts were always respectfully received. I participated in town meeting under the direction of moderators Ben Merrihew, Willard Bates, Ed Cannon, and George Tabor, who conducted their meetings in fair, objective, nonpartisan, and respectful manner. I always felt that it was my duty to attend town meeting, ask questions, and then vote depending on how I felt the issue would best serve the community as a whole. I listened with an open mind, sometimes having my mind changed by one person who stood up and added a piece of information that might have been missing. I feel it's important to give everyone the opportunity to ask questions and offer opinions, no matter that theirs may be different than someone else's. Sometimes one person's viewpoint can change our own way of thinking. Over the years, not only did I attend town meeting, but like my dad, I stepped up to the plate and I got involved. When our children were young and in school, it was school activities that kept me out of the house. I helped establish a PTO at both the Deaconess and the middle schools. I supported the sports programs, served on the high school advisory council, the superintendent's advisory council, and I was a committee member on Dr. Nolan's Total Quality Management Committee. When the town of Rochester announced that they had approved a waste-to-energy plant just over the Wareham line, it became a huge concern to the residents of West Wareham that we'd be the recipient of hundreds of truckloads of trash driving along Cranberry Highway to and from that facility. And so I organized a citizens group of neighbors and started the West Wareham Concerned Citizens, which existed for 8 years. Not only were we able to voice our concerns about CMAS and see positive results for the town of Wareham that are still in force today, but we also became acquainted with our own town as well and issues that came forward, and we learned about those issues. I would invite guest speakers to help us become more informed. Each year, I would invite the town moderator and the chairman of the FinCom to come and talk to us about the warrant, and we would go over each and every article so that when we went to town meeting, we had a better understanding before we went. As chair of that community group, I never took a public position, but made sure that everyone heard both sides of the story. In the late 1980s, I served on the town's deficit review committee to try and solve a budget deficit of over $3 million. And back then, that was a catastrophic budget deficit. I've been a recipient of the Women of the Year Award from the Wareham chapter of the Business and Professional Women's Club for exceptional qualities of leadership, integrity, and distinguished achievement for the betterment of my community. And a few years later, the recipient of a commendation from the Wareham Board of Selectmen for professional and civic achievements. I co-founded the Wareham High School Alumni Association, which provides a platform for coordinating alumni of the school and holds fundraising events to provide scholarship for high school graduates. I'm editor of the Alumni Association's newsletter and liaison to Wareham High School. I've served as chairperson of the Wareham Police Station Feasibility Study both in 1995 and 2005. I'm a member of the Wareham Land Trust Executive Committee and clerk, and been responsible for taking votes, keeping minutes, reminding the board of Robert's Rules of Order, and as the public events coordinator, I have to speak at public events. I have also worked on the Swan Festival and need to be organized and need to be able to coordinate. I am a former owner of C&H Office Supplies, an independent consultant for the Longaberger Basket, and have been the office manager of Smith Cesspool for more than 37 years. As you can see, I have a great history of civic involvement. I understand our town, its government, and how it works. Why have I changed my mind about running for public office? Having gone to town meeting for so many years, I'm concerned that our town meeting has become unwelcoming and unfriendly. Many good people have lost their desire to get involved and participate in town meeting. I have my concerns that town meeting has become biased and unruly. So at this time, I didn't wait for anyone to ask me if I'd run for public office. After great thought and deliberation, I decided for myself that I would run for the position of moderator with the hope to restore fairness and objectivity to town meeting. I come with no agenda other than to give residents of Wareham a voice through town meeting participation, and with the intent to treat each voter with respect and consideration for their own thoughts and opinions. I believe that our town meeting has suffered from inattention to process and a lack of respect. These are weaknesses that can be addressed to restore town meeting to the effective and participatory government Wareham has enjoyed for many years. I have several goals that, if elected, and I ask for your vote on April 6th, that I would like to implement to bring back to town meeting a more efficient meeting for the voters.
Good evening, everyone, and please don't start the clock on me until I express my thanks to the OPL for sponsoring this, and to give a shout out to the Wareham High School Vikings boy basketball team for winning the state Division III championship for the first time in Wareham's history. It's not only a credit to them, their coaches, but also to the people who support the players and the coaches, and that's you, the community. My name is John Donahue. I'm running for re-election as moderator. I've served as your moderator for 9 years now. First, I want to give you a little bit of background before I talk about the position of moderator and my qualifications for the office. I was born in Boston. I was named after a priest in South Boston. I lived in Brockton until 1962. I moved here to the town of Wareham, having visited Wareham in the summertime for many, many years, growing up in Parkwood Beach. I really enjoyed that experience. I'm going to check my notes from time to time, although I am going to try to speak extemporaneously. I attended the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and worked in the summertime here for the municipal maintenance department as a casual laborer, laying down highways, hot concrete in the middle of the summertime. I worked as a shellfish officer for those that you remember, under Bud Studley, who was our shellfish constable here for many, many years. Learned a great deal about the aquaculture in the town of Wareham. Worked with a lot of the shellfish grant holders who taught me about the natural resources and the water quality issues involved. And of course, I worked on the law enforcement aspects of that. I graduated from the University of Massachusetts with a journalism English degree, a bachelor's degree. Shortly after graduating from UMass Amherst, I married the love of my life, Jane Donahue, who's in the back of the room here. In 1978, we moved to Wareham and settled down permanently here. And I should, for the full disclosure, mention that Jane is a member of the Board of Selectmen, and personally, I think you're doing a good job, Jane. We lived here for the last 31 years. We raised our 2 children here, Mary and Elizabeth. They're both products of the Wareham High Schools, the Wareham school system, and the Wareham High School system. They went on to college because of the great education that they got here. Mary is a graduate of Goucher College. She's working in the touch tone technology, computer stuff that I really don't know a lot about, but she knows a great deal about. And my daughter Elizabeth is going to be graduating from Boston College nursing school with a degree in as a physician's assistant. She passed her RN boards back in July. Obviously, I'm very proud of my daughters. In 1978, I ran for the office of assessor. I was fortunate enough to be successful. I served on the Board of Assessors for 17 years, more or less, on and off. During that time, I established my own real estate